a minute.
For Brian and Trelle Allen, love comes easy.
I just want to get this out of the way.
But so does hate.
I don't know why you're being such a bitch on my birthday.
They could be so la 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 in love, and then the next moment burn in hell.
Enjoy your drink, Brian.
She said we love very strongly and we hate very strongly.
Screw you, Brian.
Making for steamy fights.
Trelle was very flirtatious. Brian liked having the hot smoking wife.
Hey!
And bitter accusations.
Get out here!
Once she had a couple drinks, it was all downhill from there.
And once passions are ignited, they can explode.
It's terrifying to see your friend covered in blood and know that your other friend has done it.
You may kiss the bride.
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. Austin, Texas, a work hard, play hard kind of town, and the perfect fit for 30-year-old Trelle Green. Recently single, she's here to start a new job and a new life.
She grew up in Dallas area, a blonde with a great smile. Nice figure, slim, whole 9 yards. She married and had 2 sons. They had divorced.
Can I get a...
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna guess that this is the first time that you've had to buy your own drink.
It's the perfect chance for Brian Allen to move in.
Lucky for you, I'm here.
She immediately caught his eye.
What can I get you?
Whiskey neat, if you please. Make it a double.
Well, my kind of gal.
He thought she was just the most beautiful thing ever walked.
Brian was tall, dark, and handsome. He also had a very boyish face, a kind face.
You know, he was just a mountain of a man, for sure.
You should know, I have 2 kids.
Well, that just tells me that you make love like a champ.
That's right.
They were strongly attracted to each other.
That looks like it's our cue to go home.
Let's get out of here.
Wait, hold on. Before we go, I just want to get this out of the way.
They started dating after that.
Trelle and her 2 boys moved to Brian's hometown, an hour outside of Austin.
Bertram was a very small town, very close-knit community. Just a great place to grow up, actually.
Brian's father lived on the same tract of land that Brian did.
Not too bad for an old man.
He had been the chief deputy sheriff of Burnett County, so Brian had strong ties to this community.
All right, Hunter. That's enough fun.
Okay.
Yeah, you go inside, hit the books with your brother.
Bye.
Thanks, Dad, for watching our 2 little monkeys.
It was their intention to live close to each other.
And with Brian's dad to babysit, the fun continues.
It was a lot of going out and having a good time, cocktails, dancing. They like to have fun.
When they were in the room, they controlled the room. They just were the magnet. Everybody was drawn to them.
Going out is not the only thing they enjoy together.
You feel like Clint Eastwood when you shoot that thing?
And my daddy was my Clint Eastwood. I always wanted to be like him. This is his.
Brian liked weapons, he liked shooting, he liked hunting. So did Trelle. His favorite weapon was a .45 caliber handgun that had been his father's service weapon.
Can I try? Come on. Promise I'll be careful with your daddy's pistol.
All right.
They had plenty of areas to shoot out there, so they loved living in Bertram.
A natural.
Must be the gun.
Okay. Hey, come on. Come on now. All right. I go.
The fun continues for months.
They always wanted to be at the club. They wanted to be at the bar. They wanted to be at the restaurant.
How about I get the next round, huh?
Yeah.
Until jealousy creeps in.
Their romance between Brian and Trelle was sometimes rough.
2 whiskey neats, if you please. Well, I'd like to get to know you. May I 3 whiskey neats? I like your hat. I hope you're a whiskey man. I like my men smoky. You're crazy. Woo!
Trelle resented anybody that took time away from her and Brian, or at least Brian's attention.
May I cut in?
Come on, Trelle. We were just dancing. Besides, I saw you chatting with that guy at the bar.
Brian wasn't insulted by people admiring his woman. But it was, keep your hands off of her, too.
I was chatting up. You were feeling out.
Oh, you're overreacting.
Enjoy your drink, Brian.
Wow. Tastes even better without the glass.
Burn in hell, Brian!
She would be upset that he would try to make light of the situation.
Oh, come on.
They could laugh and joke and be so la in love, and then the next moment, to hell with you, and, they could go from one extreme to another.
I want to know her name. Or is there more than one?
Dozens. You're tripping, Trelle. There ain't no one to name.
Don't lie to me, Brian.
Whoa! Get out! Just get... Trelle, get out of the car right now! No!
The passerby saw Brian pulling Trelle out of the truck, physically pulling her out of the truck and pushing her to the ground. He stopped and called law enforcement officers.
Get out! Don't! Listen!
Brian is arrested and charged with assault.
We were arguing in the truck, and then Brian got rough with me.
That's not true! You tell him the truth, Trelle!
He went to jail over it and pled guilty.
It's the end of their relationship.
When they did break up, Brian started dating a young lady outside of Austin. Coincidentally, Trelle was also dating a man that lived in the same apartment complex as Brian's girlfriend.
As luck would have it, Brian and Trelle are there on the same day.
She had kept a set of keys to that truck.
Brian, come here. There's someone in your car.
What? Are you stalking me?
No! Are you stalking me? What, are you trying to ruin my life?
You're being ridiculous. Now give me that key.
No.
Give me the key. Forget it.
Hey! 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 I know you're in there, Brian. Open up!
crazy woman.
Now, Brian's girlfriend, she's afraid at the time because has this woman screaming at the front door and banging on it.
Brian!
The police are called very early on by the girlfriend.
What? Hey, no, guys, there's no problem here. I'll take care of this.
You'll pay for this.
Well, I didn't do nothing.
Brian had not wanted her arrested at the time. He urged the law enforcement officers that made the scene not to arrest her. She was charged with a misdemeanor assault.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see passion that's so hot, it burns.
Trelle throws this intense scene outside of the apartment building as if she is still in a relationship with Brian. And it is almost as if she views him as a possession of hers. Like, this is my person, what are you doing with him? When I think about Trelle's jealousy, I view it as coming from insecurity, and when people feel insecure, they try to gain control. And I think that Trelle is trying to control Brian.
Obviously, she didn't think this through too far because this is very unlikely to precipitate Brian coming out going, oh my God, I love you too, let's get back together. But the fact that she feels like she wants to disrupt what he's doing with his new person indicates to me that at least her jealousy is still there, which means feelings are still there for her.
But will those feelings fade away?
He's gonna be okay. The breakups never lasted long, and they, quickly were right back to one another.
Or will they come back with a vengeance?
Alcohol was a big part of the culture of the house. It really was.
After 3 years in an explosive relationship, Brian Allen and Trelle Green have called it quits. But they can't avoid each other completely.
How they ended up together in a vehicle. I don't recall the actual circumstances, but there was some event that they were both going to be at, and they ended up riding together.
Can I go with them, Mom? Please? Just be careful.
Yes, thanks.
Watch out!
They went to pass them, and as they did, another car was coming.
He overcorrects and hits the rock wall, the giant rock wall that they blasted out with dynamite to make the road. And Hunter went out the windshield, launched him 50 feet after that.
His neck was cut pretty much from ear to ear. He had a huge gash across his forehead. His eyelid was slit here. It was horrendous. It was horrendous. They spent every day there with him, and he was there for over a week. I know he was. In ICU at that. I'm sure it made them both realize, I do believe they loved each other.
He's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this.
Hunter's accident brought them back together.
I mean, when something like that happens, it really changes everything because of that bonding experience that they thought they were going to lose their son.
The couple decides it's time to turn their lives around.
Both of them had partied quite a bit, and when I say partied, I mean quite a bit of drinking, but they toned that down and tried to set examples for the children.
And Brian starts his own specialized construction company.
Brian built metal buildings, metal structures, and I guess he did something right with it because his business exploded from the very beginning.
The pastor's gonna love this. Ain't that right, boss?
That's right, and don't you forget it. Wait, what are we talking about?
Come here.
His shop was up there next to his dad's, and their trailer used to sit in between the two. He had his work yard right there at home.
The venture is a real family business.
Brian and his father worked together on a daily basis. Brian actually brought his father into the business to work with him.
And he makes Trelle 51% owner and majority stockholder.
He had put the business in Trelle's name because it allowed them to get bids and grants because she was a minority, being a woman.
One of the company's founding clients is a local church named Hill Country Fellowship. And during construction, Brian renews his faith.
Brian became more in touch with his relationship with God when he started building the big church here.
Great work, Brian. With God's grace, we can make this happen.
Amen.
He got very close with the pastor, and they were going to church on Sundays after that for a while.
You may kiss the bride.
These are the golden years for the couple.
They got married on the property of the house, and they changed the boy's last name to be the same as Brian's. He didn't adopt them because changing their name was cheaper, and also he knew that they were his regardless.
Brian, you could tell Brian really loved those boys. They wasn't stepchildren, they was his sons.
Brian and Trelle really seem to have improved their relationship. Sometimes when there has been a tragedy like what happened to Hunter, it really makes people reassess their values and reconnect and want to be different people. And so I think that that's completely possible at this moment.
At the beginning of Brian and Trelle's relationship, we saw impulsivity, substance abuse, jealousy, and we're not seeing those kinds of things now, and that's great. But you never know when those ingredients might come back out again. They don't tend to disappear.
In just a few short years, the Allens amassed considerable wealth.
He was probably one of the more wealthier people in Bertram. He was doing very well for himself.
It's time to trade up the trailer for something more suitable to their new elite status.
Trelle called it her dream house. She had had it planned, and Brian built that house for her.
To our first week in the house together, baby.
The dream house is completed in 2009, 2 years after they get married.
They moved directly from the trailer into the mansion. Big step up.
Their lifestyle changed significantly.
Oh, yeah.
No, not him again.
Hey!
Mimosa?
Just coffee.
Yeah, it's a bit early in the day, Trelle.
It's our housewarming.
Why not? I'll have one too.
Yes! All right. Whoops!
Trelle resented Brian's father and Brian's relationship with his father. His father lived there on the same property. His father worked with Brian all the time.
The Allens' home is a hub for friends, family, and colleagues alike.
It was a beautiful custom-built home with a beautiful pool.
It was a huge palatial home that she basically drew on a napkin.
The house was awesome. We got finished right before our freshman year, I believe, and that whole summer, we were just out there in that awesome pool every single day. It was great.
Hey, boys, good to see you. Come on in.
Brian had a plan to make this giant fortress just to have all of his friends want to come congregate with him.
Off the cuff. Nice. Just in time. I need a refill.
I aim to please, my lady.
And you always do.
And whenever he wanted to have people over, there would be flocks.
Brian's house was very much the compound, the meeting place.
Oh, give me some of that.
But now the party lifestyle they'd avoided comes back hard.
Brian was trying to slow down on the drinking, but I mean, alcohol was a big part of the culture of the house. It really was.
And that means trouble.
By the time the sun goes down, she was usually pretty lit. He would have had enough. He would only take so much.
After 9 years as a couple, Brian Allen builds his wife Trelle her dream home. It soon becomes party central, except Trelle doesn't just dip in the pool. She dives off the deep end.
Brian really started to clean up and cutting it back and his partying, and he was done. And she was not.
She could be charming. She could be a wonderful friend. She could be a very pleasant wife to Brian until she started drinking. And it was like a switch would flip.
Trelle ramps it up with all of their friends.
Gerald worked for Brian. They were close friends at one point in time.
You really are too cute for your own good, Gerald.
I'm glad you noticed. When Trelle drank, she would be very flirtatious with the people around and stuff, and she would make it obvious. She didn't try to hide it.
Oh, yeah. I'd seen her kiss Gerald on the mouth, and they thought it was funny, just to poke fun, I guess, at Brian. I don't know. I didn't think it was funny at all, and I'm surprised Brian didn't smash his face in.
That's not cool, son. Not cool.
The rumors persisted about Gerald and Trelle, and I think Brian believed it. I think Brian knew that there was something more than meets the eye.
Trelle and Gerald are making a fool out of you, son.
Brian's father is not impressed either.
I don't think there was a lot of love lost there. He probably seen a lot of things that Brian had his blinders on too.
But Brian has other concerns about his wife.
Give me some of that.
He's worried that Trelle's drinking is rubbing off on their youngest son, Hunter.
Whoa, 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 what the hell, Hunter?
Mom said we could.
She said, give me that!
Hunter said, hey, Mom, can we have some of that whiskey up on top of the fridge? And she was like, I'm not saying you can have it, but I don't know how much is in it. Good night.
She didn't really discipline, as far as I could see. I mean, she just pretty much let them do what they wanted to do, whereas Brian was the one that would try to keep them maintained.
The discipline doesn't just stop at home.
He said, you're joining the Navy. We're going to the recruiting office right now. And we did. We jumped in the truck and we all went to the recruiting office and we got the paperwork going right there.
She was proud and Brian was extremely proud. It was a big deal. They were both very proud.
Except with the children away, things deteriorate.
Looking back, she was probably resenting Brian a little bit for pushing the babies out of the nest a little bit, so to speak.
You need to feel free to open up, to tell each other how you feel.
I mean, it's never enough for her.
They were going through couples counseling through the church to improve their relationship. Brian wanted to make it work. They had come so far. I mean, from having nothing, literally, living in a trailer on his dad's property, to this thriving company that he now owned and operated and was very successful in. They had this beautiful home, huge home. And the boys, too. I mean, they were his boys.
If it weren't for the boys...
If it weren't for the boys, what exactly?
You don't work. You just shop all the time. You sit by the pool and get drunk. I mean, where's the line?
The line is exactly where I say it is.
It just bothered him that she would seem to be depressed and stay around the house and just drink and do things like that rather than doing something productive.
I'm not really sure why they stopped going to counseling. Other things took over.
At this point, it's looking like Trelle is going back to her dysfunctional behaviors, and Brian has sort of maintained the course. I think that Brian's plugging himself into his religion has helped. I also think he's really begun to value the kids, whereas Trelle, on the other hand, seems to have actually become more self-centered. It's almost like she's disconnected from worrying about other people and caring about other people, and instead she's just sort of doing whatever it is that she feels like.
The absence of her kids now, the fact that she doesn't have to be mothering on a day-to-day basis, probably opens up more of a space in her life than the kids leaving did for him. And anytime somebody who has had a dysfunctional past, somebody who, for example, has engaged in substance abuse in the past, has an opening like that in their life, some of those dysfunctional behavior patterns might come back in to fill that void.
6 years after tying the knot, Brian has had enough.
He can only take so much.
He was talking about, and how everybody perceived him as having everything, but he really had nothing. It really made him open his eyes, realizing, man, I have all of this stuff, but what do I have in here? Or what do I have after here? You don't get to take it with you when you die. That really hit him. And I think he was just tired of her antics.
Brian was getting ready to make a change. Financially, he had a very successful business that had built up, and he was going to lose half of that, but he was going to leave Trelle.
Can't do this anymore, Dad. But it means giving up on everything I've ever worked for.
If you're finally going to leave Trelle, I got your back, son.
He was like, I just want her to leave. I'll let her have all this stuff. He said, I'm done.
What are you doing with the gun?
But the price of splitting up will be very, very high.
It was all downhill from there.
Brian Allen is thinking of leaving his wife, even if it means losing half of his fortune. But before he can do anything about it, Trelle springs a surprise trip on him.
Trelle had booked a weekend in San Antonio for Brian's birthday.
We needed this. 12 years and we've been mostly great, right?
What are you doing?
He wasn't favorably impressed with that surprise, but he went anyway. From there, things started going downhill.
Let's get wasted like we used to. Remember?
It's not even noon. I thought we talked about not overdoing it.
Relax. Remember fun?
Hey, you can't smoke that in here.
You're being such a smug prick, Brian. As if you never smoked a joint before.
I don't know why you're being such a bitch on my birthday.
Well, I'm sorry, but I thought this was supposed to be a getaway. Us reconnecting.
How in the hell are we supposed to reconnect if you're getting smashed all the time? Damn, this is exactly why we don't talk anymore.
Spare me the lecture, Brian.
Trelle!
They were fighting in the hotel room. The noise brought security to their room.
Trelle, you got company.
Trelle comes out of the bathroom and says, yes, it's my marijuana. Both of them get kicked out of the hotel.
She went to jail. He sat outside jail all night long in his truck.
Things are pretty much falling apart with Brian and Trelle, and yet he agrees to go out of town with her. My thinking is a couple of possibilities. First of all, the most likely in my mind is that he's not ready to end the relationship, and so he's trying to sort of play along until he feels like he has the right moment. But I also think it's possible that he thinks, you know what? She's actually trying to do something with me. We're gonna have some time together. Maybe we'll reconnect. Who knows?
It looks to me like Brian thought or hoped that Trelle was going to get back on the same page with him, and maybe Trelle's plan was more, hey, the kids are gone, we don't have to be parents, we can both get dysfunctional again. We can both go back to substance abuse, we can both go back to that lifestyle. That's just not where Brian was at that point in his life. And so it looks to me like this trip probably cemented for Brian that now we are on totally different pages about what we want our lives to look like between now and Dad, and I'm right, that it's over.
Sunday morning, she's released.
He was mad because she had gotten arrested over the weekend in San Antonio, and yet she's mad at Brian because she went to jail for it.
I don't know why she'd be mad at Brian. It wasn't his fault.
They're both still stewing the next day.
Hey! Hey! Get up already! Make me some damn breakfast!
What? I haven't slept in 2 days.
It's 10 in the damn morning.
Useless piece of shit.
She immediately goes back to sleep and woke up at 1 p.m. And then when she woke up, after being asleep till 1 o'clock, Brian wasn't there. Well, that angered her. Said, well, you didn't even text him?
Trelle and Brian argue on and off all afternoon.
And it seems like her anger is building. Brian apparently texts her and asks her as it's getting closer to 5 is whether she's drinking or not by the pool.
It's not even 5 o'clock and he thinks I'm drunk.
It angered Trelle when he asked her that by text.
We were hanging out and doing our own thing, but I did notice that she was spending a lot of time texting that day. And she was mad. She was mad that day.
And he comes in, he's drinking a beer when he comes in the door, and that kind of set her off.
And you have the nerve to ask me if I've been drinking.
Hey, I ain't the one with the drinking problem, Trelle.
Screw you, Brian.
They started to fight, so I left probably about 5:30 in the afternoon.
So she ended up having an argument with him and going into the bedroom and locking it.
A short while later, a friend of Brian's drops by.
Hey, there he is. Job's done.
I had a boat. Trelle was going to do the outlining of the flames for me. So that's the day I went over there to pick up the boat.
Hey, you seen Trelle?
I was talking to Brian, and that's when Roger was there.
Hey, you want a beer? I'm gonna get you a beer.
He came by that afternoon, sometime around 5 o'clock, and just stopped in. I wasn't invited, but a lot of people did that over at Brian and Trelle's. Interestingly enough, he didn't ask this guy if he wanted a beer, but asked the other guy, went in, got 2 beers, one for Brian, one for the guy with the boat.
Trishy, darling, there you are.
Hey, Roger. Well, you look like you're in need of some fun. Let me get you a beer.
The first time I ever even seen the guy or heard of him, and Brian was not real happy that the guy was there.
She goes out on the 4-wheeler with this friend. He says he went up there to visit with Trelle. They went and fed catfish. They were drinking beer. One thing led to another. They go back down to the house, have the sexual encounter at the house. They go back out on the property until it's getting dark, which is about 9:30 at night. They were intimate. The fella that came over and Trelle had sexual relationship in the 4-wheeler.
They were out in the back pasture having sex while Brian is 300 yards away.
I think it showed a total disregard, lack of respect, and again, this self-centered nature of hers to have sex with somebody else while Brian may have been on the property. I don't think she was aware whether Brian had left the property or not. Just a total disregard for Brian's concern about anything.
Honey, what are you doing?
You think you can get away with this?
What are you doing with the gun?
I've had enough of your bull. This ends now!
Put that thing away.
No! Get back here!
Go!
Barnett County 911. What's the address of your emergency?
My husband came at me with a gun and I got it out of his hands and I shot him.
I pulled up and all the lights were off. That's the first thing I noticed. It was pitch black. I've been over there 3 times a week for 6 months, 7 months. Not one time in my entire life did I ever see it that dark.
I did it.
What did you do? Trelle, what did you do?
I see Trelle, and it's dark, and I noticed that she had some blood on her. And she said, I did it. I did it. I said, you did what? I said, where's Brian? What did you do? What did you do, Trelle?
Brian's laying right in the doorway that goes from the bathroom into the bedroom. That sergeant goes inside and finds Brian on the floor.
He's coming at me. He's angry. I was in fear of my life. I shot to the left, I shot to the right. He kept coming at me. I had to shoot him. I had to.
Brian Allen is pronounced dead at the age of 38. Shot to death with his own father's service weapon.
I've speculated about the significance of Brian being shot with his favorite weapon. You know, there are varying conclusions that we come to. One is that, okay, it was convenient. He kept it there by the bed on the nightstand.
The investigation begins immediately, starting with Trelle's 911 call.
Trelle Allen, when she called 911, had already said, I had to shoot him.
I had to shoot him.
She said, he came at me and I had to shoot him. He came at me and I had to shoot him. She said she was in fear of her life. The fact that she's 5'5" and 129, and Brian's, again, 6'2", 6'3", and weighs 285, would certainly be a consideration for self-defense.
Lending credence to this theory is Brian's previous conviction for assault.
Brian got rough with me.
That's not true. You tell him the truth, Trelle.
There were various calls of disturbances during their early years.
Except the evidence doesn't add up.
I always hope that they live happily ever after. Not how it worked out.
Self-defense, I didn't believe that for a minute.
Trelle Allen claims she shot her husband Brian in self-defense after a day of fighting. Authorities immediately ask for an autopsy.
Brian was shot through the shoulder, and that bullet exited under his armpit and went through his left upper arm. The next shot, the shot that actually took Brian's life, went into his back, just to the left of his spine, through his heart, and didn't exit. So being shot twice in the back doesn't exactly comport with her explanation of self-defense.
Nor can police explain why the house was in total darkness.
The lights are off. There'd be no reason to turn the lights off after the shooting. So they must have been off before the shooting occurred. That would have to result in her going into the house after her companion for the evening had left, the fella that came over to visit that she had sex with, going into the house, turning off the lights, getting the pistol, and laying in wait for Brian to walk in.
Because with the lights off, Brian wouldn't be able to see what's coming.
Depending on where the person would be, you might not see her. And that's what looks like it happened. It looks like the lights were off because there's no other plausible explanation we found for those lights being off.
So police dig deeper into the couple's relationship history.
At the point where we start looking at interpersonal relationships is immediately after the scene is secured and all physical evidence is accounted for and we see the results of the autopsy. And although motive is not one of the elements you have to prove in a case of murder, it's always something we look for because why did it happen? That's what we're interested in determining. And there was plenty of evidence.
They learn that while Brian has one assault charge filed against him, Trelle has more than a half dozen filed against her.
A passerby saw Brian pulling Trelle out of the truck, but Brian would later explain that Trelle had started kicking him while she was riding in the truck, and he was getting her out of the truck.
Police take another listen to the 911 call recording.
There were actually two 911 calls. The first one, Trelle apparently is calling and trying to call the 911 operator and doesn't realize that the phone has connected. She thinks that no one has answered the phone, and yet the phone's already recorded. And so you can hear her voice in the background say,
Just die knowing that, you piece of
Barnett County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
My husband came at me with a gun and I got it out of his hands and I shot him.
Okay, is he still alive?
Police request Trelle's phone records and learn that her texts went beyond mere arguments.
We were there swimming and she was texting all day.
She texted that she wished that she could shoot him. She texted that she wanted him to die and be buried in the backyard under pigs. The text messages that Trelle sent were certainly incriminating, almost a preview of what's to happen. All of these things led to the conclusion that there was no way this could be self-defense.
Get out! You're ruining the vibe!
Trelle's rage was simmering all day.
She was already texting friends about being angry at Brian. She was angry over the weekend. She was angry at going to jail.
That night, it all boils over.
By the time she's having sex with the guy that came over to visit, it's pretty clear that by then this has reached a critical point. The fact that the lights are off, I think she made the decision that she was going to kill Brian.
Trelle, I need to talk to you.
Hey,
What are you doing?
I hate you.
He was running from her. He knew she was shooting at him. He knew that she was trying to kill him. He knew.
And deliberately uses Brian's father's gun.
Part of it's convenience, but part of it is just the hatred that Trelle was expressing. In using that gun, she resented Brian's father. She resented Brian working so much.
yeah. Just die knowing that, you piece of
It's very clear that she had a level of anger, a level of violence building up, that she acted with something that was handy, but yet planned.
My husband came at me with a gun and I got it out of his hands and I shot him.
I wanted them to have the happily ever after. I really did. All of them. It didn't work out that way.
In 2015, Trelle Cara Allen is sentenced to life in prison for Brian's murder.
The jury went out to deliberate a verdict of guilt. It was about 15 minutes when they determined she was guilty of murder. That's very fast.
I think Trelle murdered Brian because she wasn't going to be dumped. And she wasn't going to lose her marriage. She wasn't going to lose her lifestyle because of him, in her eyes, making a decision finally that she wasn't worth staying with. And I think the way Trelle did it was sort of characteristic of her. It was impulsive. It wasn't well thought out. So I think it was typical Trelle, spur of the moment, rage-driven decision.
When I think about how Trelle went about killing Brian, I don't think she put a lot of thought into it at all. And so I think she just figured she's reasonably smart. They had violence in their past. And so if she killed him, she could use a self-defense explanation and that people would buy it. I think that Trelle ultimately killed Brian because he looked down on her and she felt rejected.
She took a great man's life that day. Man that didn't deserve to die. He had a lot of life left in him. He had a lot of succeeding to do in the world, and he would have done it.
It was just such a waste of life, and he was such just an awesome man, and he made me want to be a better man. He made me want to be a better father.
She couldn't just walk away with half or the house. She could have had a lot. Now she's got nothing, and we're left without Brian's love. I feel like everyone probably needs a dad. I got a little taste of it from Brian because he was so generous with his love. But yeah, she robbed Hunter, and all of us have. I'm sorry.